Okay, we'll call the meeting to order at 1 minute after 6. Welcome, everybody. Our first order of business is to approve the minutes from the 22nd.
Make a motion to approve the select board meeting minutes from April 22nd.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded, discussion. No discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Nay. So approved. Additions and deletions, old business, town official website proposal and timeline. That is under 8F. Do you want to wait and watch the meeting, or do you want to do it now? Okay.
So
We're not, you're reading the additions, we're not in the actual agenda, you're reading the additions to the agenda.
But we talked about this before, that
Right now, you're just reading what the additions are, then you can go to members of the public. But right now, you're in this section, just
Okay.
notifying what the additions
I'm
are.
patient, you can put me wherever you want, I just.
And then the new business is request to roll over the gravel crushing budget to fiscal year '26. And then new business is common use request for the elementary school. And then members of the public. There you go, Corey.
All right, thank you. My wife told me to tell you all, I didn't realize this until this morning. May 13th represents our 20th year owning property in Townshend.
Oh, congratulations.
You're right. So 8 years in the cabin, thanks to Rob. And we been here a long. Anyway, this is, as you guys know, I kind of worked this up for a website committee. Rick Heggie, God bless him, is supportive. He's agreed to be an advisor as we do this. Really, right now, the first order of business is just to come back to you all in 60 days with an RFP for you to review, see if you like it, and then we issue it. That's when the real work begins in terms of, I was just saying, Laura, that's when the real work begins, because all these web designers have said, we're gonna need 4 months to talk to your town, talk to the clerk, talk to the, all of the various players in town, the committees and all that, and see what they want. What do you want? What do you want to see in a town website? What are your drop-down boxes? What do you want them to look like? So, but that's later. That's after you all choose a vendor. So now, it would just be, as you can see, these 7 folks I put on here just to really make sure that the RFP is looks good for you. We've done all of our homework, crossed all the T's and dotted all the I's. We've got Rick, went to hear from Sherwood. We got Rick to agree to serve, and that's all that really. So for now, it's really just as the timeline says, between now and June 30th, really just for us to meet and then come back to you all on July 8th with a proposed RFP, and then you can do with it what you want.
Okay. Yes, Connie?
The one thing that is also on the agenda is appointing Corey as the coordinator.
Mhm.
So I don't know if we need to do that before or after. So.
I would say we would not appoint a website coordinator until we have plans for a website, in my opinion. So I think we can move forward with a committee, get the RFP moving, and then once we have that kind of in process, we can.
Yeah, once this gets going, we're gonna have to decide about that. Who is gonna be the, like, who's gonna be Rick Heggie? Who's gonna be the person to do it? These folks insist, I've talked about 3 different vendors, and I keep on telling Connie, I don't like this, they insist that this, if Connie is pushing the print button now for the agenda and putting it up on the board, she can push the same button and upload the agenda. That's what they're telling me, how easy this is gonna be. For somebody to actually be the web. They used to call it a webmaster, right? And that's old fashioned. Now, I know, right? So now let's do that recording. So now all we're looking for now is just the appointment of the committee, and then we'll come back to you on July 8th with a closed RFP for you to review, and all these people have agreed to serve, so.
Corey, thank you for your work.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am?
Hi. So I just wondered, I kind of remember what the cost of the website was gonna cost. Was that around $4,000 you had said, and I believe it's in the budget. Do you have any idea what the yearly cost would be going forward after that money is spent?
Good question. What they're saying, Katie, is I've talked to various people, and they don't know that I'm talking to other people. So I'm trying to just get a gauge for what they say. Most people are saying you'd be foolish to do upfront like 15 grand to get this thing going, because that's a lot of money. But what you can do is, he says, you can probably get website companies that if you agree to a 3-year deal, they'll do it for like $3,800 a year. So, and that includes setup, all this kind of stuff, and then maintenance. Once it gets going, 24/7 calling for emergencies. Like, so you're looking at about $3,800 to $4,000 probably a year. I will tell you this, and for what it's worth, department, the committee will look at this for you guys. I thought this can't be true, because I was looking at our budgets thinking, well, where does this fall in? This $4 grand or $3,900 or whatever it is. Believe it or not, and I'm gonna really go back and check this, because I fed all of our financial sheets into computer, and it said that we are spending, the town is spending $7,200 a year on different departments for copy machine leases. So, and some of these people have said to me, that will be cut in half right there, because you don't need that anymore if you have a fully functioning website where you can upload the stuff and everything becomes electronic. So, again, I'm talking long term, but hopefully you'll find a need where, you know, we don't need $7,200 worth of lease machine, copy machine leases, because the copying is kind of like old fashioned.
And what about our cybersecurity? Does that coincide with this at all? Because
Yes.
we do pay fees to Europa for that, and they might need to be looped in on this so that we can find out what that added cost is.
Yeah, and most of these people are saying that what comes with the package is security for the website, so people can't hack into it and all that kind of stuff. All three of these folks said to me that the thing that's the most important at this point now is to think about ADA, because you think, well, how could ADA in a website, how is that even connected? Well, it's so people who can't hear, they get a caption. People who can't hear but want to read the transcript as people are talking. All those things will become available on the website. And as these guys have all told me, that's standard now. That's standard. That you have to do that if you're gonna run a proficient a website. So
And the other thing that I heard is that having a fully functioning website can reduce your Europa type costs instead of increasing them.
yes, absolutely.
So-
And one of the things, Kate, I've thought about you many times. I mean, have you actually run in yet to any grant writer that has said, you gotta have an official website?
I've run into a lot of different circumstances where it would benefit us greatly.
Yeah.
Not any yet that's been a deal breaker, but definitely they are looking for that. You know, it's in a lot of ways it's like free publicity for the funder in a lot of ways, and so they like you to have that. They also like to see what you're doing, and it's hard in a small town like this to see what we're really up to.
Yeah, and I personally think it's going to be a source of civic pride too, when people see, wow, all right, for a little bit amount of money, we look semi-important. We'll see. Anyway, that's my proposal.
So I would like to make a motion to establish a town website committee to investigate the development of a website, an official website for the town of Townsend, and propose an RFP to the select board. And on this committee, there are already 7 individuals who agreed to serve. I can name them off, I guess, for the record. Corey Sicklin, Marilee Atlee, Tyler Burns, Madison Sicklin, Connie Holt, myself, Nick Suarez, and Alenka Wilson, and Rick Hagee as well. And these will be open to the public, any members that are interested.
A second.
Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. Okay, and then we have, do you want to ask her since you're looking at this? We have, who is it, Connie?
What's Katie's
Tree woman?
tree common a community tree fund proposal.
Would you like to
Section.
offer to move her up so she
Sure.
doesn't have to sit on the line?
Sure, do we need a motion?
Yeah.
I'd like to make a motion to move the community tree fund discussion up to right now.
Second.
All right, any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Everybody said aye, Tom? Okay, and then do you want to tell the woman since you have her right there?
She's right there. She can hear us.
Hello.
I can let her off. But
Okay,
I think Katie ought to lead off and set context.
So, we are the recipients of a community tree fund grant. And there's a couple different things that we're hoping to accomplish tonight in this meeting. There's a letter of collaboration that hopefully we will motion and approve to have signed so that we can collaborate on this. And let's see, the different collaborators are the Vermont Urban and Community Forestry Program, who Gwen is representing right now on Zoom, the Vermont Electric Power Company, and the Town of Townsend. Those are the three collaborators. Just so today, we would like to review the letter of collaboration, finalize the number of trees, which I believe we're eligible for 4 to 5 trees. We have about $2,500 to spend. The trees range from 279 to 329, and delivery is roughly 40%. They also provide us with mulch and gator bags, which hold several gallons of water to kind of self-water the trees, so that lessens Jeremy's need to go out there every day or whatever. And obviously, if you have a lot of rain, you don't have to do it as often. They'll be there for the tree planting, and our road crew is gonna dig the holes, and Rob and I met to discuss tree, because Rob is also the tree warden. We met to discuss tree species. With Gwen, she had given a bunch of different suggestions of things that are available. And we kind of thought about different aspects of our common when we were choosing the species, having to do with the kind of soil that we have, the traffic that it gets, the full sun aspect of it, the longevity of the trees, the height of the trees, different things like that. I have taken Gwen's list, which she had provided links from the Arbor Day Foundation, and I discussed at length with Rob and came up with some recommendations for the trees that we should get. And the last thing that we need to decide in this meeting tonight is the tree planting dates, or date. We would like to do that before the end of June. I would imagine the sooner the better, but not in a total rush.
have you decided on what type trees?
Yep, so in the packet, I put what my recommendation for the trees, based on the conversations I've had with Rob and Gwen. So the first tree that I wanted to recommend was that we get, so I'm assuming that we're gonna get 5 trees, right? Because I would like to go for the goal and get as many as we can. So I was gonna recommend we get 2 of these black tupelo. They grow pretty tall, they last a long time. Their foliage is yellow, orange, red, and purple, often on the same branch, so they're kind of spectacular in the fall. They're full sun, they're very resilient trees, and they won't mind our soil. The next one that was recommended, and I think the Velco representative had also mentioned these swamp white oaks doing well in urban environments.
We have one, don't we have one?
We don't have a swamp white oak.
We have a regular white oak.
Oh, regular white.
Yeah, it's just labeled as a regular white oak. The oaks do well for a lot of the same reasons as the black tupelo, so I thought we would get one of those. And then we had talked about some flowering trees. So the 2 possibilities, and we do need a backup for either one, would be getting 2 kind of crabapple trees for some color, and they're beautiful. They don't last as long, but they do really well across the street at the school and things like that, and they just make it look really beautiful. Or this Sargent's cherry, which actually grows a lot taller than some other fruit trees, and it's one of the most resilient trees to have on a common because it can deal with road salt and alkaline soil, and it's pretty tolerant. So I guess we would choose between the Sergeant's Cherry and the apple, or keep one as the top choice, because Gwen had said that there's a possibility we wouldn't be able to get the Sergeant's Cherry and we would need a backup. So, so again, my recommendation was 2 of the black tupelo, 1 of the swamp white oaks, and either 2 Sergeant Cherries or 2 crab apples.
Should we first do a motion to sign the letter of collaboration
Sure.
and then move into?
Sure.
I make a motion to sign the letter of collaboration for the trees on the common.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Ally, should it mention that you're gonna sign on behalf of the board?
And I will sign on behalf of the board.
Second.
Okay. If there's no further discussion, we'll move that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Connie, I'm gonna abstain.
Okay. And then what part are we at your,
Are
are we
we on
deciding about the
So-
crab or the sergeant?
how many and then what types?
Yeah, I would say 2 sergeant is my opinion,
Well,
and
how
then,
many in total?
I'm getting there.
Okay.
I'm getting there. We said 2, 1, 2,
That's what-
right?
But I think the reason that she put the crab apple in is we might not be able to get the sergeant.
Right, and then I was just gonna say, that we could have the crab apple as a backup. That's my opinion, I don't know what the board thinks.
What do we think about the tulip tree? Tulip poplar?
I thought about that, but sometimes with all the petals and everything, it can make kind of a mess, and that would be extra. And I was thinking about the tree spread and a little bit more the ease of mowing around it and tree care and that kind of thing. And then most of all, something that Rob had pointed out to me was just the looking at what other town commons have and why they have those trees, and a lot of them will choose the crab apple or one of these larger cherries because they do really well in the urban environment with the soil compaction of people walking by and kids and everything like
Sure.
that.
I believe that Jeremy had expressed a concern about crab apples because of the droppage.
Just the fact that they make a mess, but it is what it is, I guess.
I saw some varieties that don't
They make a
fruit,
mess.
so maybe that's a possibility. I mean, the American
Yeah.
crab apple species looks like it envelops a lot of different kinds. It just depends on our zone.
The only thing other than the fruit is the canopy, and you know, to get the mower underneath it. That's really the other issue.
Right.
Pretty well.
Right, and that's where the Sergeant's Cherry came in, because I really liked the idea of the crab apples. I thought they're beautiful, they smell nice, they bring pollinators. And the Sergeant's Cherry has from what I understand, kind of grows a little taller and then spreads out. So that might be a way to get the best of both worlds. I could be wrong. Gwen maybe can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I was understanding from what I read about it.
Okay, so should we make a motion on what trees?
Can I motion even if I abstain?
Yeah.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to get 2 black tupelo, 1 swamp white oak, and 2 Sergeant cherry trees for the common using the community tree fund grant. If we can't get the Sergeant cherries, we'd like some version of an American crab apple for those last 2 trees.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Connie, I'll abstain again.
Okay, so no abstention. Okay.
And my understanding is that there's 2 other issues, which is the site of the trees and the date.
Actually, so the process of choosing the site of the trees, I was deferring to the tree warden on that, and Rob and I walked the common and came up with a pretty good plan. We still need to call DigSafe and have them come out, so we would put some stakes in the ground and then have them come out and just give us the go-ahead. And they, I think that's good for 30 days, so
Yep.
that should work for us in terms of when we're gonna do our planting. I think there's not too much that I wanted to discuss about exactly where they're gonna be located, because you are sort of at the mercy of how far away they are from the other trees so they can grow and spread, and where we have open space on the common. And I think Rob has a pretty good idea of where that should be, so.
Yeah, and just not in the way of the water from the
Right.
elementary and different
Right, and you don't
underground
want the
things that
roots
are
to go
there.
into any pipes and things like
Right.
that, which is where DigSafe will come in.
Are we generally thinking like the perimeter of the common, or?
No, we thought pretty much a couple were in front of the bump stops, a little bit, set back. And then there's a spot where the stump is, there's a stump there.
Yeah.
Somewhat close to that.
Yeah.
And then maybe another one over something on the Route 30 side,
Okay.
in the open spaces.
Yeah.
Great.
Just kind of disperse nicely, add some color all around, not put it too far together.
And then the dates of the planning?
Right, so the dates, Jeremy said they're pretty open, he can schedule to dig the holes when we need him to. I would like Rob to be present if possible, I'll be there. And then the Velco people will be there, and Gwen will be there with the Vermont Urban and Community Forestry Program. I did not hear back about their suggested dates, so I thought we could propose some.
So do we definitely have the grant? The question is just
We do.
whether it's 4 or 5.
Yep,
Okay.
we need to put all this stuff in motion in order for them to
Okay.
say we're gonna come on this day, they bring the trees, they bring the mulch, they bring the bags, and,
So basically, if they give us the trees, we plant them. Okay.
but they'll be there on site to help in all of that.
Yeah,
So
but
it's-
that's our cost, is what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Have you been in touch with the keeper of the common about all of this? It seems like that directly pertains to the keeper of the common. They would probably like to be part of this, or maybe
Sure, I haven't spoken
Yeah, we
to her
can.
yet.
Has she contacted you?
No, she contacted Ally.
And I forwarded that to you,
Yep, and we were gonna set up a meeting to discuss where we were at.
and that'll be included in the meeting. So, okay, shall we vote on this?
So what kind of dates, like obviously during the week, if we need DigSafe, I think they have to respond within 48 hours, is that what I was told?
I think so, I wrote that all.
It's gone, so it's every 2 hours.
Okay, they have to respond or they come out?
They have 72 hours to mark it.
Okay, okay. So, if we're looking at June, maybe we should do it in the first week of June? Does that sound good?
I don't know when graduation is.
The elementary school is the 11th, and I think that the high school is a couple days later.
Right.
So,
Following week.
do you
So we
think?
could do it after that, so when the town confusion is quieted down a little bit.
Okay, so you're saying the week of the 16th?
That's my initial thought.
And I don't think we have any other events happening that week on the common that I'm aware of. Okay.
So week of June 16th?
And
It's
then
getting pretty
maybe.
late in the planning season.
I know, I was
A little bit.
thinking because it's the 13th of May, I kind of feel like the sooner the better.
Could we do the last week of May? 2 weeks from now?
Sure, the week of the 26th. That seems okay.
And then the trees are there for a week or two before the graduation.
Yeah, they would be there at least 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks before. And I planned on going over to the elementary school and giving them a heads up that we're doing this and everything so that they're hopefully extra cautious.
We could probably, Jeremy, get some stakes and some orange tape around them, around the new trees so that,
Oh, absolutely.
so the elementary kids don't go playing with them.
I can, maybe send a memo to the.
Yeah, we'll do that too, but I think a visual might be good.
Like some snow fence or something.
Yeah.
So I propose Wednesday, the 28th. That gives you guys time to dig the holes earlier in the week. Does that sound good? Does a Wednesday work for you?
I'll be around,
Okay. And then
leave it down.
Gwen, just let me know, does Wednesday the 28th work for you? And I would imagine morning. We'll say 9.
I think that could work. We've got a big conference on Thursday, but if it's the morning, I think we could swing it for sure.
If Tuesday's better, Tuesday the 27th, we could do that.
Tuesday might be a little bit better, but I'm happy to make Wednesday work as well.
Okay, let's say Tuesday, May 27th in the morning. Is 9 a.m. good, or would you prefer earlier? What works for you?
9 a.m. is great. So I actually had a call with Northern Nurseries, who will likely be the supplier of the trees, and they typically do deliveries. They leave their shop in White River Junction about 7. So I forget how far it is from White River Junction to Townshend. So that it's really the delivery would be like however the length is from 7 o'clock to then. So, but yes, so as long as the holes are dug, then we could get right to it.
Great. Okay. Well, that sounds good then.
All right, so we have a motion to vote on?
Yeah, we do. What's the motion, Connie?
There's no motion on the table.
Oh,
Okay. Do we need a motion to schedule?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Okay, so Tuesday, May 27th, I'm gonna say 9 a.m., but basically it'll start when the trees get there.
Should probably be before 9.
Can
Okay.
somebody, maybe have Northern Nurseries send me an email on how big the root barrels are, so I know how deep to dig the holes?
For sure. Typically, the trees that I think that we'll be ordering is a 2 to 2.5 caliper, so they'll be like about 3.5 feet wide. So between 5.5, 6 feet would be great. Not too deep though.
Did you hear that, Jeremy?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Gwen.
Well, thank you, Katie, for leading this. We're really excited to work with you, and I'll keep you posted. I'm fingers crossed for the Sergeant Cherry. That's really one of my favorites, and I just hope they could get it to us in time.
Okay, great.
Awesome.
That would be wonderful.
I'll call Northern Nurseries and let you know tomorrow.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, and good luck with the website. I'm very excited for you on this project.
Thank you.
All right, take care.
All right, we're up to correspondence, and that's easy because we have none. And now we're at warrants. Would you like to read them, Kate?
I'd love to.
Oh, that's right, you're the new,
Yes.
sorry.
That's all right. Make a motion to pay the warrant starting with number 1 payroll in the amount of $13,250.47. Number 2 payroll tax in the amount of $3,695.72. Number 3 the general fund in the amount of $29. Number 4 general fund in the amount of $21,260.41. Number 5 highway fund in the amount of $155. Number 6 highway fund in the amount of $24,818.92. And number 7, town hall reserve in the amount of $6,089 for a total of $69,298.52. Take it or leave it.
Second, okay, discussion?
I can point out that the town hall reserve on here is the remainder of the slate roof repair.
That was the article that was voted at town meeting a year ago, the $50,000 article.
Yeah, and the $6,089 is for the remaining balance on the slate roof repair,
Which
was
will be
completed.
reimbursed when the
Yes.
state.
They're gonna give us a number on that because we paid slightly more than that for, it was supposed to be 50% down and 50% after the work was finished, but they used some of our slate and credited us, I wanna say around $389 or something like that. So, half of what we paid in total, I don't have the number, but that's what all reimbursement will be, so a little bit more than $6,089.
Okay. Any further questions? I have some questions there that I will ask Elaine on different bills, just little things like it looks like we're paying a credit card fee on the plumbing bill when we're paying it by check right now, so I'm not sure why that was there, but I'm not sure it's worth holding up paying, but they're little questions. And we didn't see them ahead of time because Elaine was away last week. So, hush hush back there.
I did.
So, any further questions, folks? All those in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Then we have the treasurer report, our little one-page doozy. Our large account is $1,004,703.29 with a handwritten note that this says includes the 354,082.11 from Firehouse CD. And that then it says balance below that, which works out that the real balance without the fire department CD is $656,621.18. And then our slush fund is a little more than usual. And it's $35,656.00. I'm quiet because that 5656 looks like the damn money. And I'm like, what is that doing there? And maybe it's just coincidental, right? But one never knows. So I don't know if there's anything to do other than just to see that's what she told us. Okay, then our town clerk report, Alenka brought in the last 2 weeks in April, $2,430.50. And then we have 2 pages of,
We had the highway report.
oh, okay. And Jeremy, do you have a highway report for us?
I do. I just want to let you know that the tires on the rubbish truck came in over. When they were swapping them out, they found that the 4 tires that I originally was trying to save were not good. They had big air bubbles in the sidewalls. So we had to put 4 used. He had used tires that were in really good shape there. So it saved us some money there. So the total bill was a little over $3,000. Also, the grader has been sold. The check is in hand. The bill of sale is in hand. I guess the only thing now is to where to designate those funds to be placed. And
Have they picked it up? They picked up the wing that day that we
they
gave.
picked up the wing and the wing tower and all the extra parts and pieces that I had in the shop. And I don't know if they picked up the grader yet or not. To be honest, I haven't noticed.
Yeah.
So, is it gone?
Picked it up the other morning.
Is it on? Okay.
Yeah.
It's gone.
Okay. Yes.
I guess yesterday morning.
He was gonna call me when this guy was supposed to come, but I guess he never did, so.
And I would like to also, part of the highway report, say thank you for doing the backyard to give us more of a parking area and to allow us to look into the septic tank.
Which I have an update on. I talked to John today,
Okay.
and he is pretty adamant that the tank doesn't need to be pumped. He said it was in pretty good shape and down, it wasn't full up, so he covered it back up and we're good to go.
Yes, Connie.
So regarding the 20,000 from the sale of the grader, if we do nothing, it will, I believe it goes into the highway fund and it will be used to cover the budget, which currently the highway is running over budget, may not be running over budget by the end of the year, but currently it's running over budget. And then we have this $80,000 deficit that is not reflected in our budget status reports, and it is still out there. Or we can decide to put the money into the highway equipment fund and take a gamble on the highway budget and then put all the money into the highway equipment fund, or decide to do some portion of.
When you say that it's over budget but not by much, do you have a ballpark figure?
I won't know until tomorrow after the warrants get posted, but if my rough numbers are correct, we are running well over budget because Jeremy is using some of the supplies or the salt that has come in. So he's not running over budget on his materials that he's purchasing, but the entire department is running over. It should, hopefully at the end of the year, if you take out the $80,000 deficit, we should be running pretty close to
What
budget.
does salt have to do with it? I'm not sure I followed what you
Because
said now.
on April 23rd, was that the day after our last meeting, when the warrants were posted, we were 5% over budget. But Jeremy had said, look, I'm stocking up on some items, whether it's gravel stones or maybe a culvert or two, and just getting some more salt. Again, that won't put him over his line item budget, but it attributes to being over budget currently
So,
in the overall department. I think our highway committee is meeting tomorrow to review how much more spending is going to be happening between now and the end of the year. And we knew that this was coming, but
From what I recall, most of that over budget is being driven by some of the equipment
Yeah.
and repairs,
truck
right?
repairs.
Right.
but
That's the biggest, that's why it is
Yeah.
over budget.
Everything
We have
else is
so much.
pretty much right at the mark.
Yeah, as far as
except
my line items go, we're there, it's all the truck repairs that we
no,
do.
we're actually under budget in some of our
Yeah.
line items, and we will recoup that money. And that is why it's, even though we had some big expenses, we brought in a lot of money.
Yeah.
And we're under budget in some areas. So we expect by the end of the fiscal year to be pretty close, but we still have the $80,000
Can you
deficit.
talk to that? The 80,000 from the prior year,
Yeah.
correct?
I believe, I could be wrong, it doesn't show up in our budget status reports because it wasn't budgeted for. So our budget status reports are how we are doing according to our budget. But our budget didn't include the $80,000 deficit because we didn't know that at the time, because we're always a year behind. So we have two options on that $80,000 budget. We can try to really come in budget, maybe use some of the greater money and deal with the budget fiscal year 25, or we have to budget for it in fiscal year 27.
And didn't we learn that you can't just keep adding deficit to
Right.
deficit? So, yes, Laura?
Wasn't there supposed to be $75,000 in FEMA money coming in that was gonna go to that deficit?
It's not FEMA, it's leftover money from the
Special article.
special article. The FEMA money has been put into the budget. I was told that it had to be just put into the budget, that you couldn't hold it out. So that's one of the reasons why, even though we got socked with huge equipment issues, we are coming in really close to budget, which is great. But that money, the $75,000 is left over from the $200,000 allocation that the voters voted on last year for highway equipment.
I thought that the reason the reason the deficit existed was because of the work that had to be done that FEMA was covering.
From the year
Eventually,
before,
from before, wasn't that what?
fiscal year 24.
But, okay, I'm kind of lost. It just seems like that's why that deficit existed, was because,
That's why it exists.
yeah, so why can't the FEMA money pay it off if that's what cost it in the first place? You know,
It may pay it off. I'm talking about if we are looking at budget status reports to see how we're doing on our budget didn't include an $80,000 deficit that we found out about after our budget already went into effect. So we have to factor in $80,000 that we hadn't budgeted for. And so our FEMA money would definitely have covered that if we hadn't experienced huge equipment problems
Right.
in Jeremy's first year of running the department. So so that's why that won't cover that. We've used up that money. Thankfully, we had it. It puts us in much better shape going into the end of this year. But we still have this $80,000. My understanding, I'm not the treasurer, but my understanding is that we were told by NEMRIC, just watch your budget status, but our budget doesn't include the $80,000. So I can check this with Elaine, but my recommendation is that we use some of this $20,000 to offset and hopefully try to work on that.
I don't know if I'm thinking correctly, but isn't this how we got in the little bit of a question mark with the fire department where they were saying that X amount is owed from 2019 and it was all deficits and it's like, what?
That was in large part, that was also a bookkeeping issue.
Yeah.
With the way
Okay.
that was kind of carried on year after year.
And it became
and
much
how
less,
things were being,
but still there was money owed.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah, but
the
there
select
was a lot
board
of
can
confusion
decide
because of the
just to put it into the highway budget, and it will go towards the highway budget, which we will be hopefully not way over, but we have the 80,000. Or the select board can say, we're gonna take our chances on the budget, and we're going to take that 20,000 and put it towards equipment, which there is a equipment proposal for the board to discuss. And it is challenged financially. The funding of our highway, of the truck proposal, has some real funding issues, and you could decide to
Could
use the
could we think in the middle and say if everything's flush and we end up with $20,000 at the end as a surplus, then we want that to go towards,
You could do that.
I mean, that way you'd be hoping that you get a flush budget, but you would be having the 20K to help with that if need be.
I just don't think we're gonna come out with an $80,000 surplus to cover the $80,000 deficit. Now, there's two ways my understanding from NEMRIC is that there's two ways to deal with that deficit. We try to address it this year, or we budget for it and have the residents vote on it for fiscal year 27, is the way I understand it.
I would personally like to see the 20,000 applied towards the highway fund and go towards addressing the deficit.
Rather than, did you say? You said
No,
it
and
quickly.
go towards addressing the deficit being in the highway fund.
Say the whole thing again.
So not
Good.
put it in the equipment
Not put it in
fund,
the
put it
equipment
right in
fund.
the highway.
Not put it into the reserve, put it into the highway fund, so that it can be
Okay,
used for the
that's
deficit.
clear. I'll
I agree.
second that.
I agree.
So, what
So
about
I'd probably
further
take a motion.
discussion?
Is that a motion?
Yes, I
a
will make a
motion.
motion
Okay.
to apply the $20,000 from the sale of the grader to the highway fund.
And Ally, you
Yeah,
second?
I did. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Everybody eyed it. Okay. And then chair. Review the action items. I don't know if the folks here have reviewed them. Rob, you got a lot completed. Congratulations.
I know, that's what happens.
I know, you're a good
Stop
role.
kicking the can down the road.
You're a
and
good
things
role.
Start snapping some rear ends.
You're a good role model. I met with Sovereign Solar today, which was very interesting and answered a lot of questions. And I intend to write up my findings and hand it out to you folks so you can help me formulate maybe next steps. One thing that I found out, which I never dreamt of, was like, why the heck aren't we getting money back on our streetlights? Because that's $9,000 a year, and it's one of the most expensive electric bills we have. And he didn't know the answer, so he called Green Mountain Power, and they said it's because they're not metered. They only charge us by streetlight. It's because there's nothing to wattage it. So that's how we get charged for that. Therefore, he can't apply solar credit to it. But I said, well, that kind of stinks because we've got a lot of streetlights that we probably don't need all of them, so we should review that. And the other thing is they're not very good, strong streetlights, so we're paying $9,000 for ill-lit streets still. And he was going to research some bulb replacements, and I was gonna call Green Mountain Power.
I was on the board when they put the new lights in.
Okay,
They're new in all of them have been replaced in the last 6-7 years with whatever Green Mountain Power had said was the best thing at the time.
And at the time is the thing, and I think they get old and wear out like a lot of them. there are some that are not working, and whose job is it to climb up there and figure out, does it need a new bulb, or, I don't know the answer to that, maybe you do. So, yes,
I was on the board when Carol Mellis researched that in 2013 and contacted them. And I actually knew we couldn't put the solar credits because that's when we put the solar field in. And that we couldn't recoup that because it is the base rate on those. And we drove around and eliminated like 6 at the time and added 2 because they're mostly at all your intersection where town road intersects, and which is kind of required.
okay.
And I believe that we have them on
Yeah, they were
Harmonville
all
Hill,
in.
just at areas where possible pedestrians in this area, just enough so they can see where it's not pitch dark. And that's where I think you added the 2 was on the Harmonyville Hill, because they didn't have any down there.
So I was gonna just see what the longevity of the bulbs are, and who paid for the bulbs, do you remember, did we pay for?
It's all part of the meter reading.
So they pay for them?
You call them up if it's out or if there's a problem, they take care of it.
Okay.
You know, last I knew, I don't know, that was like at least 15 years, 13 years ago. But
Yeah,
last
20
I knew, they
2014,
said,
the
you just
solar-
tell us where you want them, we'll put them up, and this is your rate.
Okay. Okay,
So there's some other action items, if we wanna run through them.
go ahead.
So, we have the town hall common use policy that was supposed to be brought in front of the select board today.
I am working on that, and we will finalize it at the end of the month.
Okay, so for the 5/27 meeting?
Correct.
Okay. I don't know if we're continuing to move forward on the procurement policy. That is still something that's out there, but I don't know if that's something that we're doing.
Where is
That
it
was
on
Rob who was gonna review it.
Where is it, Con?
It's sort of towards the bottom of
It's on
the
the
first
second
page.
page, middle of the road. Or bottom of the third up.
So that's one.
Yes.
Is that something that we're gonna continue doing?
What, the procurement?
No, having Rob review it for a purpose?
Yeah, another month or so, I might get it reviewed.
So that will still remain on there. We have the fire department alarm system. I think that's still ongoing. I think that Warren wanted to meet with the company when they come out and do the garage. I don't know if that happened or not, but we can check on that. The draft RFP for the common tree care. I think
That's on the agenda today.
I think you were gonna talk to the forester.
Yeah, and I have not done that, so that, we'll keep that one on there. And then we get down to the things that I did not do. Discussion with Corey, I did not do. He was moving pretty quickly on that. It sounds like we are well on our way, which means that the first 3 don't need to be worked on. I don't know why I was talking with Shiloh. I don't know if we've had a conversation with Shiloh about the events coordinator role. I can still do that, I just need a little more direction on that one. Laura spoke with me about the Community Hope and Action model. I have not contacted Tim Morton, I need to do that. There was not Warren, but Glenn had raised that someone may want to reach out to Kathy Heggie on the dam. I don't know if anybody wants to take ownership of that, it hadn't so far. The research for the financing option of the truck purchase, I think we should have a conversation of the revised truck proposal that came out of the committee meeting before we decide how we do that. And then there was the boiler in the fire department.
I did the
I
next
think
3.
Katie was gonna do,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I can report back if you want, I think.
Do we wanna jump to the fire department boiler?
Super.
Okay, so I met with Glenn, had a lengthy discussion about the boiler. As the select board, the first thing I did was go over the Dead River contract. The Dead River contract is over at the end of May anyway. So the answer to that question is that if we did change the heating system, we would just negotiate that at that time. So it was kind of, that part doesn't affect us.
And sorry, just a point of order, just to make sure we're on the same page, we're talking about the oil propane contracts in
Yep,
the new
so
business.
the first part, so there was 3 things with the firehouse boiler replacement. One of the questions was
We're actually on action items, that's a different issue,
Okay,
that's just getting quotes, and
Okay.
do you want to, which company?
okay. Those are separate.
So the first action item having to do with the firehouse boiler replacement was looking at the Dead River contract. So as I said, that's up on the 31st, so we're good there. I looked at the procurement policy for this kind of a purchase. I believe the purchase was somewhere around $14,000 total.
That sounds right.
Wanted to put somewhere around $8,000 down now, or $4,000 down now, and the rest later, one of the two. So the firehouse, in our procurement policy for the town, our fire chief and our assistant chief are purchasing agents with a little asterisk next to them. And that means that they can make purchases within the scope of their operating budgets, but if funds exceed that budget, then select board approval is required, which is what he did. He brought that to us because I believe this year their budget for repair of the firehouse is only around $2,000. So obviously that he needed to bring that to us, and he did. So let's see, but the boiler would be considered an incidental or a minor purchase because it's under $20,000, I believe. So we're fine, we're not bound by a bid process. Glenn had brought us that estimate, it was a good estimate. And pretty straightforward, so that's that action item having to do with the procurement policy and how this falls under it. And looking at other forms of heat systems. So, the thing about the firehouse, well, one thing up front is that they purchased 2 oil tanks not that long ago, only a couple years ago, maybe 2 years ago or so. So that's something to consider, that we have put money into this current system recently. So we wouldn't, that's something to consider. The current system uses oil to heat a steam boiler, and there's fans. The space, being it that is not insulated and made of cinder blocks and fairly old, and also has bay doors that open and let all the heat out, has to have some, has to be able to heat up quickly. And we don't want the water in the trucks to freeze, so that also affects what kind of heating system you can have in there. So there was some talk of heat pump, or could we move to forced hot air? Forced hot air wouldn't be an option because there's nowhere to put the ductwork.
Right.
You're also looking at a large upfront cost to do something like that, like replacing an entire heat system. And then in terms of heat pumps, you don't have the best, below 20 degrees or so, you don't have the best
Insulation.
they're sort of in that way used as a backup or in conjunction with another type of heat source. You would also need several of them to go in the different sections of the building, so that you're looking again at a large upfront cost. The type of municipal heat pumps that they do offer for buildings sort of like this need, I don't want to say the wrong thing, but they need, it's not geothermal, but it's something like that, and you have to dig in the ground. The footprint of the building doesn't allow you the space to dig into the ground to install this system. So from my opinion and all the research that I did, I think that the current system that we have is worth replacing. I do understand that they go every 6 or 7, 8 years, but that's the nature of it, and a lot of that has to do with the water. The water wreaks havoc on the inside of it. And there was some possibility, which Glenn is looking into getting a quote from a couple local people on, should we filter the water coming into just the boiler? And then that would maybe work to make the boiler last longer. If we wanted to put our money somewhere, that might be the best way to do that. How much money? We don't know yet, because we don't have the estimates for that. But I was ready to come to this meeting today to recommend that we move forward with the plan that Glenn brought to us last meeting, where we go forward with the bid or the quote that he got on the boiler replacement. Keeping in mind that we need to replace it before October because we don't want anything to freeze, and it is the heat source for the building.
This was where we said we were gonna put a down payment from this year's
Yep.
money and the balance from next year's
Yep.
money.
Yeah.
The other thing that I wanted for us to think about, what would insulating those cinder block walls like with the spray insulation?
Right, and so these things are, so there's a lot of things to consider. The building itself feels like a building that's in flux, right? Because we all know that we had to just purchase special equipment to even fit inside of it because it's not the right size for our needs. And that's a larger discussion that I've been told that the town has gone over many times over the past however many years on what to do with the building. If you're going to invest anything more than this amount of money, I believe, into the building, you really have to think about how long you're going to be using that building for.
But I don't think that a filter and insulation is exorbitant.
Right. So it depends
So-
on what you've budgeted for. Maybe over this year, we could figure out how to put that into next fiscal year's budget and then go forward with it and then give ourselves more time and a little bit better efficiency. That seems reasonable. We can also, in the meantime, get an estimate on what it would take to insulate the building, of course. And maybe these two possibilities with some insulation and looking into the filtration system could get us a lot longer,
Yeah.
less hard.
Well,
on
it's the most
the system.
expensive building to heat in town.
Yeah, and it will always cost us a lot of money because you dump the heat right out the door, and that's just the name of the game with it. So
Yes, Laura?
Well, I don't know about municipalities, but I know that there are funds available to help with, through the state, to help with insulating and heating costs and stuff like
Like
that.
Efficiency Vermont.
Yeah, like I know that, I bet those tanks that they probably got a rebate on them because the state of Vermont was offering rebates on oil tanks. I think it was 2 years ago. And I would almost lay money on it, they got rebates on those because the state mandated that you had to have a tank that was relatively new, so maybe there might be some kind of avenue to pursue.
I did look on Efficiency Vermont for at least with the heat pumps to see if they had any incentives, which they do mostly for residential homes. And then they did have some rebates, but you have to go into a bigger conversation with their representatives on what your needs are and how big of a contract you would have. And the rebates were fairly small in my opinion, not saying they're not worth getting, but anywhere from a couple $100 to maybe $1,000, which every little bit does help, but in that they were mostly for that heat pump kind of system that I saw. I didn't look into it for an oil boiler, but I can if that's something that we want me to look at.
And Vermont Bond Bank does also have programs specific for energy efficiency. So there's, in the financing side, some, not incentives, but lower interest rates available for these kinds of projects.
Seems like sometimes when you borrow the money is a little easier on the taxpayers than asking for it all at once.
I don't speak for.
Wait, did you have your hand up before?
No.
Okay, I thought I saw you and then Laura started and I didn't want to ignore you. Okay, any further discussion on that, folks?
I have just one last thing on the action items.
I have another thing on the action
Okay.
items, but you go ahead.
Before we move away from this, I think we were looking, at least in my notes, we were looking to try to make a decision tonight
right,
on the purchase of the spoiler or not, because
Yeah.
as the fiscal year comes to a close, we wouldn't really want to be spending any of that money in June. And in my opinion, it being the main heat source for that building, we should do it now and not later, if people are comfortable with
And he
that.
said that with the deposit, the price will be set and wait for the next part.
Yeah. So I think, I'm trying to see if I have a copy of that invoice from last time.
When did this come before the board? Wasn't it just like a month or so ago?
Last meeting.
3 weeks ago.
But at the last cold spell, it died.
Yeah.
We were
Yeah.
thinking we were gonna have to put the space heaters going.
So why didn't it come before the board then?
Did.
Did
They just did.
That was,
It was 3 weeks ago.
oh, that's the last goal, that was 3 weeks ago?
Yeah. Mid-April.
It seems like it didn't seem,
It seems like it's been a long time since it's been in this room.
Yeah, it's a lot warmer than it was a month
I would,
ago.
but I don't have the exact number. Not to exceed $15,000, maybe I could say.
Yeah, that's good.
It's specific number, not just a shot in the dark.
What number?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I'm on a 2 notebook system for the rest of
Exactly.
it.
I just keep it straight. Network system and color coded.
Yes. Sometimes sticky notes.
There's a total and then there's a balance due. But that's upon, prior to the installation.
okay, so the total is 12,880.
No, because we got a rebate, so we're at credit, so it's 12,130.
130 and
The down payment,
down payment. 4,050.
and then the balance would be, I think they're talking about doing that next year. I'm not sure how.
8080, and that's due upon completion.
I'd like to make,
Hold on a
oops,
second.
sorry. I'm not sure. Wait, what was the total? 12,130, there we go. I'd like to make a motion to direct the fire department to purchase the oil boiler for a total of $12,130. The down payment will be $4,050 paid up front, with a balance due of $8,080 upon completion.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Are you all gonna pursue trying to find ways to help out fire department as far as becoming more efficient or anything?
Well, I think,
Or is this a done deal for?
no, don't be negative.
It's not
I mean,
done.
No, I'm not being negative, I just wanted to go.
no, but I think
This is
we'll,
like a first priority, right, to have a principal source of heat, a primary source of
Yeah,
heat.
yeah.
An efficient source like a heat pump would not be able to be something, like, it would need to still have a backup heat source like this.
Oh, yeah, I know.
So it's not a done deal.
And I can speak to it that Glenn is in the process of getting us a quote for a water filtration system. So that could possibly add longevity to the system. And then Nick just had said a different thing about efficiency of municipal buildings for Vermont Bond Bank that I was gonna look into for insulating.
All right.
so it's not a done deal.
Yeah, I can report back.
Yeah.
I wasn't trying to be negative, I thought.
If we wanna keep it on the action items, I can report back on those things next year.
Okay, I have one thing that
Who's
was,
gotta vote?
Yes, we did not vote.
oh, okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. And ongoing was the emergency communication discussions. On
With Grace Cottage? Is that the
with
one?
Grace Cottage, but it's with et al. And today the lady that we had down for local aid coordinator came in and met Connie and myself in Alenka. And she's lovely and quite talented. She's a nurse and she's working with another resident, Pam. I can't recall her last name. But she's willing to be our local aid coordinator.
Yeah, we're gonna go over appointments.
Yeah, but she's really a nice lady, and so I wanted to say that I've kind of completed that. And we will continue to have meetings with them, we'll just have another person to involve. All right, I think think that's it. Then the grant coordinator doesn't speak until next week. And then we go on to old business of appointments. Do you want to describe to us what we're seeing, Connie?
Anything highlighted in yellow would be voted on tonight.
Okay.
And there is 2 names in the weigher of coal category, the second weigher of coal category. At the 422 meeting, we appointed 1 weigher of coal, but the other one was vacant, and there are now 2 names for that position.
So we've got Rob Wilson already appointed, and now we have 2 people vying for the weigher of coal. I just don't know what to say about that. So let somebody else speak to that.
So I think you could separate out the weigher of coal and do a separate vote on that, or have a discussion and decide who you're recommending, and then include it in the big vote. And then there are still a couple positions that we do not yet have anybody stepping up for.
Do you know what the cell tower appointment is? That might be interesting to find out. The energy coordinator, I would love to see somebody strong with an energy background get that, because the guy I was speaking with today, it was difficult for me to follow him. I'm in education, I'm not in solar, you know, I approve of it, but I don't really understand it, so.
My understanding that energy coordinator is also one that the state has some involvement, or so it is something that the state looks to.
So we don't have many blanks.
What does the Wyndham Regional person do?
I think you attend meetings, whether
They're a
they're.
member like your planning commissions.
Yeah.
They're a voting member, like a planning commissioner.
Yeah.
But at Wyndham Regional.
Huh.
So, how does the board want to do it with the 2 people?
That's sort of my fault, because I had put Sean on there, and then, I guess in the meantime, then.
Does he really want it, do you think?
Sean,
said
do you really
yes.
want it?
He's on there.
Oh,
You can flip a coin.
If it's usually Maggie Bells, it can be Maggie Bells.
Well, it's not usually Maggie Bills. I think she was it at some point along the way. Maggie Bills is also in 2 other appointments. So she
and the
is
bottom
on-
line is how much coal's in Townshend?
Yeah.
Well, except if there's somebody new that wants to step up and do something, Maggie is also on the Howard Legacy and the town juror, the town grand juror.
Oh, cool.
So,
Alright, let's make Sean the weigher of coal.
So
Is that a motion?
yeah, that's a motion and I second it.
Okay.
Sorry, Maggie.
So that particular one got voted on, wouldn't have to be included in the bigger vote. Because you guys, haven't voted on it yet. but-
We'll vote for Sean with the bigger vote. Is that what you're saying?
No, it sounds like there's a motion just on Sean
Right.
to vote on, and then vote on the rest of it.
Right, that's how you told us to do it. That was one of the options, right? So, all those in favor? Opposed? Okay.
Was that a 4-0-0?
Yep. And now I will make a motion to approve the highlighted appointments
Second.
and discussion.
That does not include the website coordinator, correct?
Correct. Like it said, you know, even though it's highlighted,
It's
I
highlighted, but it
see
is
what you're
separate.
saying, yeah. Okay, discussion?
I think, are we having descriptions of the new ones made? Like the newer, I saw a description that was made a couple weeks ago of the events coordinator, and then it went back to draft, right?
Yep.
Shouldn't we be doing that for all of the newer appointments, just so we have that like as a guideline, so people know what their responsibilities are.
So that should go on to the, to be
Action
done.
items.
Yeah, and that would be the website coordinator, the
Events,
events.
keeper of the common.
Aid coordinator.
Yeah, the local aid coordinator, right? I don't think we have a full description of that.
We may not have a description of the energy or the cell tower either.
Right.
I don't know if
And
we
those
have.
aren't new.
And they aren't new.
Okay.
The cell tower was when it was put in, we needed to have a representation to be part of that whole development.
I'm wondering if we go like another 10, 15, 20 years, if we're gonna have like, almost everybody in the town has an appointment. Because you keep adding them on, and it seems to me, some of them are like, just a Mickey Mouse type of writing something in here.
Well, I do
Giving
think,
somebody the grand idea that they got something serious they're running for.
Okay, inspector of the wood timber.
Yeah. Okay, the property, town property liaison. I mean, where did you come up with that? That's just something you just fabricated out of anywhere.
It
At
is.
least the other stuff has been on here for however long.
Do you know why I wanted that on there?
I,
Or do you not?
enlighten me, please.
Well, I'll tell you my thoughts. You can, of course, dispute them. My thought was so much of the property here, nobody knows who owns it. Oh, I think there's a lease on it. How long is the lease? I don't know. You can't find the
First, what are you talking about? A lease on what?
land in behind the high school there, the athletic fields. We own it, they lease it from us. But nobody really knows all the particulars. So
I voted for that in 2013, and it expires in 2001-13, or 21-13. It's for $1. And it's the field areas down here. All the property is tied to the property of the actual town.
And see, the paperwork I found said that it was signed in 1979 for 100 years.
We had to revisit it in 2013, and I believe there should be something in the vault.
Well, see, I can't find that, and that's one of the reasons why I thought this was a good appointment. So that when I'm not here someday,
I'm not disagreeing with you, but
somebody else will have a book and know what it is, because I talked to Alenka about things that are important, maybe putting them in the land records, because that's where you go to first, and when you don't find anything, you're searching through, like even where the septic field was.
My question is Charlie Marchant has done more stuff when it comes to history and stuff like that and figuring things out than probably any of us ever will, and he has no appointments of any of these things besides the cemetery stuff. So it's like, it doesn't have to be, you can organically just look into it and come up with whatever. You don't need to have an appointment to look into, to be the liaison.
Are you kicking me off my appointment?
No, I'm just saying that you keep coming up with all these different things, and before you know it, it's like
That's the only one I came
it
up with.
waters down. Oh, I don't know about that.
Charlie.
What was that?
How much longer do you think he's been over there? How old is Charlie?
that's what
I wasn't standing here saying anything about Charlie living or not living. I'm saying that you can do it organically.
He's a resource now, but he's not gonna be a resource forever. It'd be nice to have things on writing.
What in the hell?
Accessible.
Where are we going with this, Laura? I brought Charlie up just because the guy's put in hundreds and hundreds of hours of doing this stuff. Only as, like, just saying that he's done it, and he never had to have an appointment. It's not whether he's gonna be here for 10 years, 20 years, or anything else.
But you mean it sound
But
like
nothing.
he's a resource, but he's not a resource that's always gonna be available.
I think he's just saying
Jesus Christ, I don't
people can do things without needing
All
an
right,
appointment.
let's move the
But
question.
Difference in opinion.
there's two
That's all.
issues that are still out here, which is one, the vote on the highlighted positions excluding the website coordinator. And there's an action item, which is, since we do have new appointment positions, as long as you decide to keep those new appointed positions, there's an action item of who is going to write up a description. So there's a motion on the table, and then there's an action item on the table.
And I will defer to the board to see what they want to do.
I'll I wanna see us get rid of all these Mickey Mouse appointments that we've come up in the last couple of years and get back to what we had before.
I guess that's up to the board. Some of them we've already approved and
All
passed,
of them we have,
So,
except the website.
so. I think that might be a discussion for next year and just fill them this year, but the board can decide.
yep.
Should we start with at least the, oh no, I guess maybe you do have to answer that question first.
Did we vote on highlighted ones already?
No,
Um,
but the highlighted ones include new ones.
maybe because we don't have these descriptions and it sounds like there's some confusion about what some of them are even about, maybe we should put off the voting until next time while the descriptions get written up, and then that way the board would know whether or not they agreed with what they were voting on in terms of the newer positions.
I do think that the keeper of the common and the local aid and maybe cell tower and energy may have a description, we just don't have it in front of us tonight.
And I would personally like to see the local aid coordinator approved tonight because she's good and we don't want to lose her, and we'll have meetings to go into with the hospital, etc. So. So there's no motion on the floor, so
There is.
There's
What?
approved of highlighted.
approve the highlighted, okay.
Is there any more discussion? Yes, no?
Discussion still going on.
So we did say that the Wyndham Regional Rep we have empty. We already have Andy Snelling on there.
Yeah,
Can I amend your motion to include maybe Rick Matchkey as the other Wyndham Regional Rep from the Planning Commission?
Has he expressed an interest?
We can appoint him and he can decline.
Oh,
I don't know. Or we could just wait on it. I just figured.
another
We
planning
can move through
commission
this.
person. It used to be Bob DeServo.
Mm-hmm. Or we can just move through the highlighted.
no, I think Rick would be happy to do it.
So in this discussion portion, am I hearing that there's a nomination of Rick Matchkey for the alternate or the second regional?
Yes,
Am I hearing that? And who is nominating him?
Nick, and I'll second it.
May I say something?
Yeah,
Oh, okay. So, I don't know about some of the other appointments, but I know the keeper of the common was thought up by the common committee way back when the gazebo committee, because people didn't want to have another situation where something was neglected to the point of like disintegrating and not anyone really be aware of it. So the thought was that the keeper of the common would keep an eye on the common and try to make sure that things are being maintained well or whatever. And it was voted on by the select board, what, 2 years ago? Or-
Yeah.
And
1 year ago.
Last year.
1 year ago, okay, last year. And that was a reason that it was even thought of in the first place. If there wasn't a need or a determined need, I don't think that everybody on the select board at that time would have decided to do it.
but that's not really even an issue tonight because that was already approved last week. That last meeting, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So
Okay.
it's not highlighted,
All right.
so that's already,
I was just curious.
Yeah.
About the statement about making everything go back to the way it was 2 years ago.
Right.
So, wondered.
so, where do we stand with the motion now, Connie?
There's a motion to appoint the highlighted positions, and the two changes is just to confirm that Sean Marrow is being nominated as Weir of the Cole, and that Rich Matchkey is being nominated for Wyndham Regional.
And the local aid coordinator is Amy, not Ann.
Oh, okay.
Ally, did you mention, was there any contact between Amy Visser-Lynch and our emergency management coordinator?
Secondhand, she's working with a lady named Pam,
Uh-huh.
and who gave me Amy's name, and Pam and Sherwood have been having very friendly, nice communications that I've been copied on. So the three of them are all on friendly, working together, even though she hasn't been appointed yet. So it seems very positive.
Does anybody want to call the question and do the vote, or have more discussion?
Can you read the motion to us?
The motion is to approve the highlighted people for those appointments, not including the website coordinator.
And to add Rick Batchke?
Well, he's now one of the highlighted.
Oh, okay,
Okay.
okay. And, okay, so, and we have a motion and a second.
Yep.
And so I'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Hi.
So,
And Rob, how did you vote?
I didn't.
So you're abstaining?
No, I'm gonna go with no.
All right.
so nobody's appointed. Okay, and we will move right along to the highway truck proposal. Who wants to speak to
Can I
that?
just actually, so where does that leave our appointments? So we've now not approved these appointments. We need to fill appointments. So I think there needs to be some kind of decision as to what to do.
I think we need to have descriptions for the newer appointments so we know what we're voting on and what people are signing up for.
And who's going to do that?
I will volunteer to look at what we have issued before and send it out to the select board in between meetings. It may not cover all the positions, but I can send out what we have.
I have a question. Am I still appointed the health officer?
You are. You were in the first batch.
Thank you.
You're not a highlighted one, so we're not discussing you. Okay. Are we moving on to the highway truck proposal, and who's speaking to that?
I guess I am. This was brought up at the last select board meeting on April 22nd. And fundamentally, I don't feel I need to go through the entire thing again. The purpose for making a truck proposal was to get ahead of the curve. To get ahead of the curve on financing, because we know that we need to replace the international within a 3-year period. So we want to get ahead of the curve on thinking about financing, thinking about getting ahead of the curve on supply chain issues, and think about getting ahead of the curve on regulations that may be coming
Emissions
down.
stuff.
What we just, and then so the select board sent us back to the highway committee to re-look at the proposal with the input of Dale West. And after that meeting, we have some revisions. So this is the revised highway proposal. It is still being proposed as getting ahead of the curve on those 3 areas: regulations, supply chain issues, and funding. You will see that number 3 is crossed out because we believe that that actually isn't as big a concern as we had thought, which was the Advanced Clean Truck or Act issue, because we think that Vermont is going to be pulling away from some of the deadlines and the timelines, as is other states in the nation. But what is coming down the pike is the emission rules. So, but that's not as quick, maybe 1 year later.
2027.
Yeah, 1 year later. So I have revised the background and the context of the proposal to reflect that. And the current status of the trucks that is outlined in this proposal remains the same because it's talking about our current fleet. Dale and Jeremy met and went through and are in agreement that this description is pretty good about the current status of the fleet. So the revision is now a 4-year, again, it's a 4-year plan. I hope everybody got a chance to read it because I'm not going to read it verbatim. The funding is different. We still need to wrestle with funding, but maybe not as quickly as we thought. So it is worth looking at the section called 4-year plan, proposal for a 4-year plan, and the section called funding, and the section called the timeline.
So this is just informational, we're not acting on anything tonight.
This proposal is being submitted to the board by the Highway Committee, which is Katie, Connie, and Jeremy. Does not have to be voted on tonight, but we are putting it in front of the select board to engage with and move on. Either move to reject, move to revise, move to go forward. I don't think it necessarily requires a vote tonight, but
just an understanding of questions and answers.
and a plan to whether or not we're going to explore it. And Katie, if you want to add anything, or Jeremy?
Just that in piggybacking off our discussion about the highway deficit, it might make sense for us to get that information once the books are all reconciled for the fiscal year and everything like that, so we can see where we're at in deficit land before we decided to move on, you know, spending the first item, which would be the $55,000 on a body for the Freightliner. It might inform that decision for us when we find out at the end of the fiscal year where we're at.
Except that
Because we didn't budget.
so far
for it.
the funding is coming out of the allocation. So
Yeah.
the deficit doesn't come out of the reserve or the allocation.
I thought
Those
we
are two
had some
separate categories.
Question about how much was gonna be left.
If you look at the new proposed time, or those numbers have been revised
Okay, that's what I was.
to see what, to reflect our discussion that we had at the committee meeting.
The only thing is the body issue. I mean, that's the thing that we have to think about soon. So we can get
To have it
more.
done by winter.
Right.
Yeah, do you wanna speak on that, Jeremy, that timeline?
Well, as far as I know, the supplier that I talked to has a body in stock. It's just a matter of when the funds are gonna be available to have it done, and, you know, the longer we wait to get stuff scheduled, the more off we might.
So I would like to draw your attention, this is what I mean by the proposal for the 4-year plan. Draw your attention to that section because it clearly states that on 7/1/25, we would make an order for the replacement of the Freightliner's body for roughly around $55,000. We will have that money, I believe, if you look at the funding of the highway reserve. Right, there's going to be $75,000 remaining from the $200,000 appropriation. That will cover the $55,000 roughly for the Freightliner. So that is covered. It's the question of when the money starts coming in on the highway reserve, that the $200,000 that was approved for the highway reserve, that comes in at different points and would not cover the, does not cover,
The backhoe and the graders.
doesn't cover
There'd be a
the,
shortfall of about 5,000 with those two.
just those two, and then we have the issue of what funding is available or can we achieve if we're gonna try to put an order in for a truck to get ahead of the curve on the chain, the
So we're
chain, the
talking-
supply chain.
We
and-
wouldn't do the order until after the next town meeting.
Right.
Well, that's what
Right.
we need to,
But even if it's approved town meeting, you don't have any cash until that July.
I believe
Right.
that's, so that is why it's
Would it have
stated.
to have a flow chart for the money?
We can draw one right now.
So it says by December 1st of 2025 that the highway committee would put in a proposal. I mean, I don't know if people have read this or not.
Yes.
Okay, so it says that the proposal would be to put in by the end of this year so that we can take something to the voters, and it would mean finding a source and borrowing in anticipation of taxes. Because we would have the voters vote on something, but the money wouldn't be there.
By then, we would have financing or some idea of how to create that.
That would be in the
our thought was.
proposal that would be given to the select board by the end of December of 2025.
Mm-hmm.
Some thoughts on funding.
Which I would just say right now, I think our two kind of best avenues would be bond bank or the municipal equipment loan fund that we had looked at previously.
Yeah.
As long as we meet January 27th order date.
Exactly.
Order or
Or
delivery.
we could do
Right.
100%.
Order date. Order date. Manufacturers can,
So,
they have until March
There's a lot
to
of
make the
options.
chassis. March of 2027 is the deadline of the new EPA. So.
okay.
So we need to make an
And we need
order
to
by
But it has to be ordered before January 1st.
of 2027.
And there's one truck at that point, assuming we do the body of the Freightliner right now, or right? There's one truck that we want to prioritize for
Yes.
before that happens, right?
If we do the Freightliner body, it extends the fleet,
Yeah.
the entire fleet,
Well,
by 3 to 4
We
years.
still need to address the one in between there somewhere, but that's a less major,
Yeah.
Cause that's,
That's something we can budget for though, for the next year, right?
correct.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you'll have a body that you could put on a different chassis. It's newer body
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
for people that are wondering why.
What this proposal doesn't say anywhere in here, I believe, is that we would need, if we are going to move forward on replacing the International, we need to or purchase by January 1st of 2027.
To not be affected, hopefully, by the EPA rule.
Right, to get ahead of that.
Dealers would understand where that lies with them.
So I guess what I would like to put out is, are there questions? Are there action items that the select board wants to send the committee back to do?
I think one thing that I'm just wondering about, and it's probably more for a long term than this next year, but it's just like how does cycling out our equipment that we have purchased maybe new lately, but it'll be up for trade in like next 5 to 6 years, factoring that into sort of the revenue source as well. But again, I don't think that's for these next 2 years. I think that's
Right.
down the line.
And I do wanna
think
say
right
that
now I feel kind of
this
good about this plan.
proposal is specifically about 2 trucks. It's not about the overall status of
Right.
replacing trucks farther down. This is about 2 trucks. If we put a new body on the
Right.
Freightliner, we will have a fully operating fleet for 3, maybe 4 years, hopefully. So it's really about 2 trucks. So I guess I would say there's a lot to look at, but if the select board fundamentally decides that they want to explore this proposal, I guess you should go on record saying that, and then what's gonna what that would mean is authorization to use, the authorization to order a body, right, I guess is one of the questions, would be, right, getting authorization to order the Freightliner body, and then to authorize the highway committee to submit a proposal by the end of December for
Correct.
the new dump truck. I think those are the two questions.
Are you saying to call those questions tonight or the next meeting, or?
I think those are the two things that the board has to decide. I'm not saying tonight, but not waiting too long either, because we're,
I'm not
Well,
ready to say either way tonight myself. I
Right.
don't know what the rest of the board feels.
I think this was mostly just for more informational purposes.
Right.
Just so
well,
you
we do
have-
have a deadline of July 1st.
Right, for the one item.
And I believe in this last year, the town report, there is a capital plan for the highway department
Yes,
in
there
there.
is.
And if you wanna say 2 years out in 2027 was 2 replacements, so. Just to let everybody up to date on that, hasn't seen it. This would actually play into that.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So while I'm not saying that there's a decision that needs to be made tonight, I would like to know if there are questions that need to be researched or answered to help move along a decision-making process.
I would personally like to read this more carefully and then tell you myself.
Should we put it on the agenda for next meeting and people have a chance to read it more? Is that helpful?
I would like to see this continue moving forward. I like what you guys have done, but others want more time to process it. That's fine.
Well, one board has said that they want, so I think if even one board person says they want more time to review it, we should.
I think next meeting we'll just say that we'll make a decision. Okay, so help me here, folks. Community trees, we already did. The fire department funds issues update. I have nothing on that. Do we?
The only thing I know is that we closed out,
The CD.
and I don't know if we have, so I think it's sitting in the general fund, as you
Yeah.
can see in that. And I don't think that the fire department has provided the escrow information, I don't think.
The escrow was that money that
The
they owed.
E1.
The E1
The
escrow.
E1 escrow account.
So I don't think it's been
That's
moved
where they
there.
already had the down payment money in, and so we were
Okay.
saying.
So this
to move
has
the rest of
nothing to
that.
do with that other issue of accounting.
No, this was just the CD because the
Okay.
CD was
Okay.
But it is a
expired.
good point, I don't know what the update of that
Because,
other
you know,
issue
fire
is.
department fund issues update, that almost
It sounds like the other
implies that
issue.
it could include that too.
So where that ended was essentially it was 1,003 due from fire department to the general fund.
But weren't they gonna do one more reconciliation?
Yeah, but I haven't heard anything since.
So one action item is to follow up and find out where that stands. I can ask you on that.
I just wanna, one thing I just realized about the community tree fund, not to back us all the way back, but we do need to call DigSafe.
Yeah.
So we didn't motion for that, but, I don't mind calling them,
I don't
or
think we need to motion for that.
is it fine for me to just call them
Yeah.
after me and Rob talk and put the stakes down? Do we need anything more of that?
I don't believe so.
Okay, I just wanted to double check.
It's not
We,
encumbered
Kate, if you wanna get
additional
together, we
monies.
can do it. We have an account set up to the town already.
You can
Okay.
do
Yeah,
it?
the only thing we'll need to know is the location of the trees.
Right, so, and Rob and I talked about putting out stakes, so,
I
alright,
have some
thank you,
stakes
Jeremy.
at the shop if we need it.
Okay, so we'll plan to do that the next
Okay,
couple
and
days after we do
The
that.
town hall common use policy is ongoing. The town official website we discussed, town pit plan, new business. Is this gravel draft part of that?
That is it.
Okay. And did you have something else to say about holding money over and?
I think that's later on the agenda.
Okay. Okay, speak to the town pit.
Does the board have any questions? Is the
Has
proposal?
everybody read the proposal?
Yeah. The proposal's been in front of you since last Friday. Is there any questions about it?
No
I think there is.
teacher.
Sorry.
I know Rob mentioned this earlier, I also had similar concerns that we kind of essentially carved out this proposal to pick Hunter Excavating, which seems kind of out of order for how we do things with bids on this.
Right.
So I don't know, one, if I would approve it like that, but I just want to maybe hear what that rationale is.
This was just after a conversation I had with Hunter about how our next steps in the pit need to progress. Hunter's been consulting with me for the last couple of years on this. We had conversations, it's just a, just a suggestion, because he did say he would hold his price this year, and as we all know, nothing gets cheaper. And we could put it out to bid, could bite us in the butt, everybody can come in $3 more a yard than what they were.
If another company came in a tiny bit less, but we had a relationship with this company, we still have the right to go with Hunter.
Correct.
So I see what Nick's saying, that we shouldn't say it's a done deal. But
I think especially for that amount of money, right? That's my concern, but I do think it's great that you guys have been working together.
So
getting that
I guess the
advice.
only thing we really need to make a decision on is whether we can roll the $60,000 from
and that's
fiscal year
That's towards the
25
end of
into
the
fiscal year
meeting.
26,
Yeah.
and have all that crushed at once.
Yeah.
Because I'm kind of under the gun now to get it done before the end of June, with the hopes that this would roll over. So
Yeah.
we used to do, I don't know. Sorry, lost my train of thought there. So I guess that's the only decision, and then whether we want to put it out to bid or not needs to be decided later on. Like I said,
Yeah.
Hunter has agreed to hold his price from last year. And like I said, that could, if we do put it out to bid, it might bite us in the butt. I don't know. I know there's a policy, but he has treated us very well in the past.
and he'll probably end up with the bid, but
More than likely, probably, but
Okay, so, but, the Hunter's excavating, the conversation, the cost to scalp and to process and to take away some of the silt, that was all, Hunter includes all of that in this discussion. So the RFP, if we're talking about doing an RFP, would be to scalp, process, and to crush, and then to possibly purchase. We don't know if other companies are gonna do all that within the cost of last year's bid prices. I mean, that's what,
Yeah.
I think we're required by the procurement policy to put out an RFP and do the bid process. So no matter what, we have to do that, and I think they'll understand that. And if we write it according to all of these things that we now know we need, I mean,
we might not get anybody else.
who knows? But
Yeah, and we can't say to last year's price, we have to leave that part out, but their bottom line on the RFP will tell us that,
Yeah.
But we have no choice. We have to put it out to bid
so.
according to our own policy.
And state law.
okay, so I don't know exactly what the RFP would look like. Unless Jeremy thinks we can just go with this, but I'm not quite sure.
we'll have to revise it.
I don't know how to write that
We'll
RFP,
rewrite it.
but the one thing that probably does need to be decided tonight, because I think it would include the RFP, is whether or not we roll over.
Well, do you want to run to that right now, which is F, second to last? And I can speak to my concerns unless you want to wait for discussion. We can make a motion to,
Make a motion to go out of order and move the battle crushing request to roll over FY25 budget FY26 up to now.
okay, I'll second that. Okay, discussion begins. My thought is we tell other people not to roll over, so I don't know. Connie and I were trying to brainstorm some ways that we could accomplish what we need without actually rolling over. And one of the ways I thought was if we get a company that responds to the RFP and we accept it, can we give them a down payment in this year and the balance in the next year? And then we wouldn't actually be rolling over, we'd be using money from this year. And Laura, let me see if the board has something and then we'll get to you. Anybody else?
I mean, me personally, I would be comfortable with the rolling over. I know that we have said we weren't comfortable with that with certain things in the past, but this is a pretty unique situation that we're in, and the expansion of the pit is pretty important along those lines. So that makes me more comfortable with rolling over the funds so that we can put a plan in place.
And you're not willing to think of any other ways besides rolling over?
I didn't say that. I just see this as a very straightforward way to move forward with this larger pit expansion, that's all.
So, just to clarify, this rollover would roll into the highway general fund, or is there?
It
do we
is
have
a gravel crushing
reserve?
line item.
Can I, so there,
But is it a reserve or is it just a line item? Because if the line item is just in the general fund,
Yeah,
that's
it's a line
there
item.
So it
used to
goes
be
to the-
a
Oh, there
line,
used to be a reserve.
there used to be a gravel crushing reserve line item in the budget. I don't know, I haven't seen it, so it's ever since we did all the number changes.
Yeah.
Because I believe this has been done before. Rob, you might know.
Yeah. Well, every year we get crushing done and we put it out to bid, and it's
Right.
usually
No,
about
as far as rolling
$50,000.
funds.
I don't know much about that part of it, but
I know in the past that it was done every other year, crushing, and
Oh,
they put 25,000, it used to be 50,000 to do it all.
that is true. We did go
That would
back and
explain the
forth, we
reserve.
used up the material we
That's part
had.
of why it was created.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could we move this money into a reserve and then it's there?
If a
Well-
reserve exists.
That
Are we
reserve
allowed
did
to create
exist
reserve?
At
I think
least
so.
last year. I
Are
don't
we
know if
allowed
it
to
fell off
create,
yet.
is the
I
selectmen
had
allowed
no idea.
without a town meeting?
That would be a
But I
question.
believe that there was a reserve.
There was, and I'm not totally convinced that it fell off of the budget yet. There's a certain amount of consecutive years of it being funded zero
Right.
that it needs in order to fall off,
So
so.
that's the-
I didn't just see it when I looked in the town report, but maybe we could look.
I would say look around 2012, maybe 2011.
I
Well,
wanna
last
say
year
it
there
was funded.
was. It wasn't funded, but last year there was a line,
That's the
there
one
was
we
a
had
reserve.
town meeting
And
for
the year
last
before,
year's
we just
money.
didn't fund it, and I wanna say they funded it maybe 2 years before that. I wanna say maybe even 2019, 2020.
I don't see it.
I don't either. But I think that's a better way, in my opinion, to do it.
So I guess the action item coming out of that would be to find if that, gravel
Reserve
crushing
exists.
reserve still exists.
And if it doesn't, can we create one? What does it take to create one?
Correct me if I'm wrong, for a long time, we didn't crush a lot of material out of there, we bought in material.
I was always told that we always crushed out of there because it was better material. But
I was thinking that we didn't for on and off, like we said, but we didn't take all the material that we put on our roads, didn't come out of that pit. We bought some, we took some out of there, but we also bought in quite a bit from Sir Sosimo in, this is several years
before
ago.
I moved in.
Yes.
Before I started working here too.
No, yes, no, I'm
Everything
talking
we put
about
on the
having,
road is coming out of that
because
pit.
they were talking about drying the pit up by if we use too much of the material out of it every single year, exhausting the pit. So,
It'd be nice to see if there was an ever plan.
I've been asking that for
Understand
2
that.
years, Dale. If there was a written plan for future expansion of the pit.
that's it, we need a committee.
And nobody
You
knows.
can be the chair, I appoint you.
Done deal.
Does that look like that information's not there? I'm very confused because I go to the minutes.
So maybe we can talk with Nemrick to talk about the rolling over question.
I have, yes, I have, at least one line item, one action item, which is, does the gravel crushing reserve still exist?
Mhm.
And if it doesn't, can we reactivate it?
Yeah.
So we're pending a vote on moving this up on the agenda, but we did not. The
Oh,
motion on the floor is
you're right.
not whether or not we're moving that money.
You're right.
It's just about moving it up the agenda, right?
We didn't
Yes,
vote.
that's the only
We didn't.
motion that's on the table.
We were in the
Until the
discussion
discussion.
portion,
Yeah.
so.
Wow.
So we probably should,
Out of
so
order.
we should probably take a vote to move the item up on the agenda.
Oh, do we,
We did not vote on that.
We
There's a
didn't.
motion and second
there's a motion on the floor, isn't there?
to move it out, yeah.
To move it up.
Yeah. So all those in favor?
Aye.
So everybody says that.
So now we are on, there's no motion on it.
There's no motion on the floor, should there be?
So,
What Katie just said.
I'd like to make a motion to pass over the gravel crushing request to roll over fiscal year 25 budget to fiscal 26 pending the information on the gravel crushing reserve, whether or not it exists, and revisit this next meeting.
second.
Okay, any further discussion?
Um,
Connie, you have something?
I'm sorry. I feel like we're under a time crunch, but I could be wrong.
It
Jeremy.
needs to be done by the end of the fiscal year to decide.
Yeah, but we're not at
No,
the.
no, to actually,
to move the money.
to schedule crushing this summer, they're already, are we under some kind of, if we
Well,
wait till
If we
June?
don't roll the money,
You're still gonna crush money with next year's money. You're still gonna crush gravel with next year's money.
but I need the volume.
I know, but you're still gonna crush gravel.
Right,
So we're
what
not
happens to
rolling-
that $60,000 if we don't use it?
So we've got three things we need to figure out.
Right.
Number one is the RFP for the gravel crushing.
Right.
Number two is talking to Nemrick around the
Recreation.
reserve account
Yeah.
and those questions, but also the question of can we just roll money for this same exact purpose from this year to next year,
Okay.
right?
I volunteer to collaborate with Jeremy on the RFP before next meeting.
And then,
So at the next meeting, we will bring in an RFP.
yeah. And then the third thing to figure out on our options here
Because like
is if we
somebody,
can expend that money right now in FY25
that we can
before the
get,
end of
yeah.
fiscal year, and then we don't actually have to worry about the rollover, right? That's what Ali brought up.
You have to say that one again. That's the fourth one?
It is.
What?
It's a quick turnaround.
What, the RFP and getting somebody to bid and to
And to
award it.
spend the money,
And
put a
then
down
to spend
payment or
it.
something before the end of the fiscal year.
We'll do it.
Next meeting
Okay,
is
so I just want to make sure that,
27.
27th.
Tree planting day.
just want to make sure, so if we're going to come in with a draft RFP on the 27th, that means we're not sending it out
Do we
until,
need to bring it to the board or can we just send it out?
well, I think,
Draw up an RFP,
well, that's what I'm trying to get clear. I think the board thinks that they're going to review the draft RFP on the 27th,
Correct.
which means we're not sending it out until June, which means we're not getting it awarded till the end of June, which means what?
We would send it
So
out the
draft-
28th, the next day, right? If we approve the RFP the 27th, we'd send it out the 28th.
Why do we need to come up with a new RFP? We've been doing this for years. Why, we should have some sort of a
we just
template.
there's some
Template.
revisions, some verbiage that needs to be changed.
I think
Because of the way we're going about stuff.
I-
So why don't we change
thought
the
it was-
verbiage,
I thought
then you get right on that fancy little email that you like to send out.
Well, we
Send
can't
us-
make decisions without a board meeting.
Well, you can make it, you can give it the authority to the highway foreman to do it, which is what has happened in the past.
We've always just did the
Except-
RFP and sent it out without board approval, so.
Except
working on
if
that?
there is this thing of, and I don't know, is this a new aspect, the scraping and the processing?
It's all under the same scope of work, really. I mean,
Is it the same thing?
it's just,
I mean, they're basically moving aggregate.
If our previous process was you guys come up with the RFP, put it out, we don't need to wait until the next meeting to do that. Katie to be working with you. We have a template, we have maybe just some tweaks. I don't see why we can't.
Well, why
apply
don't we
that.
have one of the board member besides Katie be responsible to take an eyeball at it before it goes out, and then it goes out before the meeting and we open the things in 2 weeks.
I'll look at it wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I just need to take my carving knife and carve out some time in my schedule and I'll be right on.
Okay, so I'm gonna say next steps. Send out RFP. And then, what Nick was talking about, which is the
Number
reserve,
question.
obviously, the reserve question.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was
The
some.
rollover question, whether that is something we could do if we chose to roll over the monies without the reserves.
Partial expense
And
this
then
year.
if we just, so
Spend-
those two are NIMRIC questions. The other one is just, once we get bids, if we would be able to put a down payment.
You know, like if we had the guy that said he wants to do the job, we want him, we give him the deposit, which is the money expended in this year, and then we have the,
And then they start the work in the summer.
yeah.
And that's a question for the contractor, not
Right.
anything.
Right.
Whether he'll take the money ahead of time, I think he'll say yes.
So there really isn't a question. What are we researching on that?
It's not a research, it's more
Right.
just like that would be the next thing, once we get bids back.
Okay.
We could see about if we can expend that money before the end of fiscal year.
Well, if we're going
Once you
to
accept
see
the
if we
bid, it's
can.
done.
We're making this thing way harder than it has to be. It has never been this hard. We usually we write it up, they come in, they give us, a
We don't have
time
enough
of when
money.
they can do it, how many yards that we want, what we want for size material.
The question is, we don't have enough money right now. I think that's the issue. We only have 60,000. We thought we needed
No,
120.
Timeline is, the time is what.
Oh, it's the timeline.
It's the timeline, the money's not the issue, but.
All right, you ready, Connie? Do you want to speak to the dam update?
So there is no more motions to make on this. There's just action items on this. I want to just make sure we're all in
The gravel
agreement.
crushing.
Yeah, okay. The dam, so, May 15th, the, public comment period on the revision of the dam's master plan ends. We have, as a select board, submitted a public statement to that. There is a petition that's been going around, or at least has been in town hall and the library. We will submit that petition tomorrow into the public comment. In the select board at the last meeting decided to reach out to the Army Corps of Engineers and the Connecticut River Valley Flood Commission about the issue of a commitment to water recreation to those two entities. Those two entities have now said yes, they would meet. So we need to decide, does the select board want to meet with them? The Army Corps of Engineer has said, let us know, when you want to meet. And the commission has said that they are happy to come to a meeting, or we go down to their next meeting, which is in July. So the select board needs to decide how we want to
I
proceed.
had this random thought. I don't know what anybody else thinks of it. Have a gathering of people and invite them to that, because then there'd be a big number of people that want water recreation here.
Well, not to throw rocks or nails under your tires, but I believe that they're only gonna open the dam up for Friday, Saturday, and Sunday through the whole summer because they don't have enough help.
This
I don't know the
plan,
specifics, but they don't have enough help.
right, the revision to the master plan would be a 2027 or 2028 thing. This is not about how they're running.
I was just throwing it out there that if they're shutting down 4 out of the 7 days, they probably don't care.
They don't
Well,
have the funds.
it's the current administration's funding, is that?
And we have all the
But they're-
1961 promises and brochures and of water recreation and for a water-starved region, but
So again, this could be an exercise in futility, and the select board could decide that they're not gonna do anything about it, but I was instructed to contact the state level and the Army Corps of Engineer. So I contacted Bernie's office, the governor's office, and our state reps. Have not heard back from any of them.
Yeah.
But I have heard back from the Army Corps of Engineer and the
Commission.
Connecticut River Valley Commission, which they're happy to meet with us. So I guess my question is, do we just set up a time and see who would like to come to it, or do we want to take volunteers who want to be at the meeting?
It sounds like they're volunteering to come here, so why don't we have them come during the select board meeting, so it's,
The Flood Control Commission,
Yeah.
Connecticut River Valley.
yeah.
And this is another
Is that
one
a
where,
form of discussion that is that the kind of form that you want to have a discussion with them?
I don't see why not. I mean, maybe that way members of the public could also chime in if they have
Sure.
any support for what we were hoping for. My knee jerk to reading this email before I read down to where he said he would attend one of our meetings was push back and tell him, please attend one of our meetings. So I was glad that he had suggested that, and I think we should take him up on it and have him come here and have a discussion.
and I think we should be prepared to understand our contract with them.
Yeah.
And to understand what they pay us and how it started and is it forever? And what they pay us taxes on and why that tax amount is static.
So to that end, understanding, I think we should also move on having the meeting with the Army Corps folks right here, from Alex Coates' email. They were suggesting we could have a meeting at their office or here. And they were just looking for some days and times, so I would be more than happy to join that meeting, and coordinate with you, Connie.
All right, so with the Army Corps of Engineer, Nick is volunteering.
Would it be good to have them both on the same meeting?
No,
No?
because they're two different commissions. I feel like we need to kind of do some fact finding with them
Okay.
individually, I would say.
No pitchforks and clubs?
You can.
Okay.
Wouldn't surprise
So
me.
it sounds like Katie is recommending that we ask the Connecticut River Valley Flood Commission to come to the 5/27 meeting.
Yep.
If they can make it.
And I can try to attend the meeting that you just
Yeah.
volunteered
And then
for.
the Army Corps of Engineer, are we offering any particular day and time? Like is after work or 3 o'clock better than? And it sounds like we have Nick and Katie, who are the two that are saying so far, maybe other people.
Well, but then we don't have to warn the meeting.
But
If
y'all
it's,
are welcome.
if it's,
It's
yeah, I
not a
know.
problem wanting a meeting.
I know, but,
What happens if somebody just rogue comes in?
well, then it's illegal.
Well, this is town hall. I'm sure we can.
So how about after this meeting, I can
We'll
get
coordinate
days and
schedule.
time?
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
And I think that's it.
Okay, moving on to Girds Way Road designation. What is that about, Connie? I haven't.
I think maybe Helen could come off Zoom and explain.
Helen?
Yeah, so there is a road sign on the 30 at the road is the driveway down to Gerda's Equine Rescue. And the E911 people up in Mount Pelier said that we need to either remove that road, have them remove the road sign, or name that driveway as a private road to Gerda's Way. So I asked Robert Silver, and he said that they would prefer it to be called Gerda's Way. So Nita and I went down and took measurements so we know what their new street numbers, addresses will be, if you guys will approve it as a private road named Gerda's Way.
So I make, oh, go ahead.
I make a motion to name the driveway off of Route 30 towards Gerda's Equine Rescue, Gerda's Way, and make it a private road.
I'll second that. Any further discussion?
I do have a question for Helen. Helen?
Yeah.
Since we just did the maps, I just spoke to
Yeah.
Jeff yesterday. If this motion carries, should I let him know?
I don't think they need to because they already have it on the maps. So
Okay.
that's why we didn't tell them to take it off.
Okay, that sounds
I
good.
have a question. Does the sign need to be changed?
No, there's already a sign up there. It's fine.
It says private.
It does.
Okay.
So my question is, how did that get up there?
They put it up there probably years ago.
It's been there as long as I can remember.
Road, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's been up there since, yeah, as far as I know, forever.
Will it be Gerda apostrophe S?
Actually, no, there is no punctuation marks or anything like that in the name, but we're not going to make them green out that little apostrophe on the street sign.
Gotcha.
Maybe there's more than one Gerda.
In
Okay,
the world or in Townsend?
Yeah.
In the world or in Townsend?
okay, we're done with that, and we're
We
on.
haven't
We
voted.
haven't done
Oh,
it.
jeez.
We've only
Can you
seconded.
tell I wanna go home?
Yeah.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, now we're on.
So
to-
Rob, are you abstaining or
Yeah, I'll say,
what's that?
yeah, I'll
We'll
say,
stay out of it.
What do you-
not in the road.
Yeah, I'll
You'll
stay out of it, I
stay
think
out of
that
it.
means he abstained
Couldn't hear.
in Rob language.
Thank you, you three. You up.
You're welcome.
Okay,
Anytime.
town trash bid update.
This is just to inform the select board what is going on regarding the trash collection. A number of select board meetings ago,
Yeah.
the select board authorized Townsend being part of a mutual bid process for trash collection. It changed slightly in that the Wyndham Solid Waste Management District has decided not to lead and be the negotiator of that RFP, but there was still an attempt to have have a number of towns in the region put out a similar RFP with similar dates to try to attract more trash haulers. And so that is what we're doing. So
Did they change their mind because their board met
yeah,
in the
the
meantime?
board decided that it would be too complicated.
Oh,
and they
wow.
didn't do it.
Huh.
Wow.
So,
That was
That was their
a
idea.
big selling point.
I know.
Wow. Okay.
So,
So that's really
April 30th,
disappointing.
I think there was 4 towns that put out an RFP. They were not the same RFP because each town has its
Different
own,
Needs.
different way of doing it. But there are 4 towns that put out an RFP that has similar submission deadlines and decision deadlines. And so this is just a copy of what ours look like.
Which are the other 3 towns? This one is for us.
Halifax?
Halifax, Jamaica,
and
Wardsboro, Townsend,
Reedsboro?
and then Marlboro is putting out similar, but doesn't want to be a part of the process.
That's Marlboro.
So-
Can we expand to who we contact to send it
To
out?
towns, you mean?
No, to vendors,
Contractors.
contractors. Yeah.
Well, there was, I don't know, we got a list of at least 10 from Wyndham Solid Waste. We
Because a
sent
lot
it
of
to
our
their
problem
list.
was that we were only really getting the one,
Yeah.
and that the prices were all over the place.
Yeah.
I don't know if this will help us, but I was on the VLCT website and they have a classified section, and I saw that towns were putting certain things out to, like, putting their bid notices on there. I don't know if that helps, but sometimes it helps with, it can help with just like municipality
Yeah.
specific things, so maybe that's another place we could put it.
We had one vendor call us and say they were not going to place a bid because they don't service this area.
Sure.
That's probably what we're gonna find with a lot of.
So you said Marlboro is putting out similar but doesn't want to be part of this joint process. So what is this joint process if Wyndham Solid
There
Waste is
really
not
isn't a
doing
joint
it?
truck.
We're just putting them out next to each other, but there is
Saying
no.
we have some buying power because we're in the same neighborhood,
So
and you should look at us.
inadvertently,
But we
they
don't
are a part of it.
Yeah,
Because we're not coordinating with them, we just put it all out at the same time, but it's not like anyone is saying, all right, let's.
but it's
pull
sort of
this
like if
together."
you lived on a road and the garbage collector knew that there were 5 houses up there
Mhm.
interested, they might look more closely.
Yeah.
That's what it's
It really has
evolved to.
Yeah,
It's not what we had hoped for
yeah,
with the pullout of the Wyndham County Solid Waste. Bob is still helping us and he's still being helpful, but
yeah.
not to lead it because his board said no.
And our current contract is up, what, June 30th?
We
Oh,
had
our
no
current
Yeah.
contract was up a long time ago.
Oh,
You never had a contract with Casella.
Oh,
We had one
Which is
with,
why we haven't changed.
Yeah.
now this might be a silly question, but say we put this out and we get one response. Is there any grounds for negotiating further with that?
we don't
You
have
can
to
try.
accept anything.
We don't have to accept
They
it.
have all the
We'd have
leverage.
to put it back out if we wanted to try to negotiate.
Or ignore it and leave it the way it is. Okay, if it's okay, I don't think we have anything on the floor, so we'll move on to oil propane contracts expiring. Sounds so
I
ominous.
thought that I had put in, so our Dead River oil and propane contract is expiring on May 31st. So I solicited some companies for prices, and I did a spreadsheet, so if you go beyond those, you'll see what I have gotten so far. So this spreadsheet reflects that I contacted 5 companies to get quotes on heating oil and propane. And then there was Ally raised a question about, do we want to get prices on diesel, which I have not. That was after I had contacted, so I have not done that. If you want me to do that, I will pursue that. I have contacted 5 and heard back from 4, although only have 2 quotes.
I'd like to make a motion to use Dead River at the price per gallon of $2.59 for our oil, and Dead River again for their 1-year price of $1.52 on propane.
We
Do we
are
usually
coming
do a
off
3-year?
a 3-year.
Oh, okay, sorry. I'll change that to the 3-year price of $1.50
Great.
for propane.
Second.
And they were interested in our diesel, so, part of what Connie was gonna ask is would it be cheaper if we had a trifecta?
Which they said no.
They did say, did River said no? Okay.
There's individual contracts.
But I can still talk to these other people about diesel. I think Barrows is who we currently contract with for diesel.
I call Roberts now. It used to be Barrels. That's all.
You have both names down there at the bottom.
It's Barrels / FL Roberts is our diesel
Oh,
supplier.
it's a different Roberts. It's not Roberts Energy.
What do we run on diesel?
I think the machinery.
Just the trucks,
Anyone
okay.
second?
So I can explore that some more.
Seconded.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, right. We have a motion and a second.
Any discussion? Let's move the question then. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, gravel crushing, we already discussed, common use for the elementary.
I would like to make a motion to approve Townsend Elementary School's request to use the town common for their 5th grade graduation on the afternoon and evening of Wednesday, June 11th. It looks like they have their insurance on file. I'd like to authorize Ally Evans to sign on behalf of the board, and I'd like to waive the fee.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Anybody have, Laura, did you have something that I ignored you and didn't get back to you?
No, you guys kind of answered it when you were talking.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So, that's fine.
We were supposed to
I do
do
have one
that.
question.
4,
executive session for personnel issues.
okay.
I do have a question.
Uh-huh,
Is Steve Fisk still gonna be on the select board?
oh no,
What?
I don't know,
Oh.
he hasn't been here this time or last time.
Okay.
There's no attendance requirement, so
There's not.
I'm sure he'll be back.
Well, no, there isn't. I just wondered if he contacted anyone or.
Nothing official. Show me how to sign up to.
Oh, nice.
It's a personnel issue.
Take a motion to adjourn to.
Okay, let's make a motion to adjourn to executive session.
So, second?
Okay, second and moved and,
And there'll be no report coming out of this, or?
I don't think we can say that.
You don't? Oh, I thought there, okay, I guess.
I think we have to say it as a,
We're inviting Jeremy to stay.
are we inviting Jeremy to stay?
That's your choice.
I don't think the person on the sheet.
Going there.
So-
I would ask him to stay, but not in the meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
We're reconvening at 8:31 and we've just come out of executive session and we have made a decision on, where's the number here?
On the personnel issue.
On the personnel issue, and with that, we will adjourn the meeting tonight at 8:32.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
8:32.